We are recording the meeting today, so welcome. We'll give it just a minute as folks are still joining us this morning. And as you are joining, if everybody wants to switch on to mute, and if folks want to add their name and organization in this chat, and then even maybe where you're zooming in from, so we can see how far reach we have across Massachusetts this morning. We also will be putting links in the chat as we go through the call this morning. So we'll make sure that when we'll send a follow-up email from today that will include the recording so folks can see it and any of the chats. And I know we also at Strategies for Children have updated our budget page for our website. I know Titus is here this morning, so we will include that information. And we know other groups are also doing a lot of their analysis. So we'll include other links as well. Okay, 9:34, Commissioner Kershaw, we are so happy to have you here this morning. And we just, to be so responsive the day after the governor's budget is announced. And folks, as we had advertised, we were expecting Secretary Patrick Tutwiler, and he is actually at an event with the governor, and they switched the time that he was due to be, the governor was speaking at. So he cannot sneak out to say hello to us. We know the first time the secretary was on the 9:30 call, he was literally in a closet at some event. He made time to join us. So we are going to give him our thanks that he was trying to make it here this morning, and we will schedule him for a later date. But Commissioner, we're so thrilled to have you with us today. And so just as way of introduction, we've been talking a lot about the state budget process and how it works. And it's been so exciting to do it in real time. So we know that yesterday, after some previews that we saw last week from the governor did release her fiscal year 25 recommendations. And just as a reminder to everybody on the call, this is the first step of the budget process. So this is the governor's proposal. We have 6 more months of proposals, but it's really important that this is the first step and to hear more about what's in it. And as we mentioned, we are recording it for folks who can't join the 9:30 call in the morning. So Commissioner, I'd love to turn things over to you. Maybe give a shout out to folks who can't be with us today, and we're excited to hear the update.
Great. Thanks, Amy O. And thank you so much for everyone who can be here. What an amazing turnout and opportunity to be in community with all of you today on this fantastic day. And yeah, we have a lot of folks who are out there in the classrooms and in their homes and working with kids, so can't be here today. So thank you for recording it so that we can send our thanks and gratitude to everyone out there working in the early education care field and being the workforce behind the workforce. So thank you all for what you do every day. So I want to start by just saying this has been an amazing month for early education and childcare. And I want to start, I can't believe we're still in January in some ways because of the incredible amount of things that have happened. But I want to start by recognizing the actions of our board at their last meeting. We're joined today by our chair, Paul Belcito, to support what is really a transformative rate increase that doesn't get us all the way there, which is going to be a theme for today. We are heading on the right path. We are down this journey with a lot of support and investments, and the journey has many more steps to go. So I'm really proud of the rate proposal. I'm so grateful for the board's actions and for Paul's leadership in making those transformative recommendations possible. Those new rates will be going out to our center-based programs, I think, starting in February, so retroactive to July, which is great, and really bringing a level of equity and recognition of cost of care. Most of you probably heard on the board meeting, we were also approved for the alternative methodology in January. So, which means going forward, we're going to be able to continue down that path of using costs to drive how we set and understand rates and pay rates across the Commonwealth. So Paul, thank you for your leadership. I know you're listening in today, but happy to have you jump in if you can. I also want to recognize that Mark Riley is here, even though Secretary couldn't be here. Undersecretary Riley has joined us, and we have had an amazing partnership with the Executive Office of Education, and Secretary Tutwiler could not be a greater advocate for early childhood education, from the team he has built to the support and advocacy that he personally has done on behalf of early education and care, and certainly that is reflected in the budget. I also want to recognize, I don't know if Deb Amaral is on, I didn't see that come, but Mystic Valley Y and her team, who in very short order hosted a fantastic event where we were able to announce and preview some of what was going to be in the governor's budget and her Gateway to Pre-K initiative and agenda that we're happy to share a little bit more details about. So Deb, I don't know if you're on, but thank you to you and your team and to everyone who joined us on that snowy morning. And then at the State of the State, if anyone tuned into that, we had the social sprouts from the East Boston Social Centers giving the Pledge of Allegiance. So I think I saw Justin was on. So Justin, thank you to your team and to the amazing parents and the social sprouts themselves who learned the Pledge of Allegiance and made us all so incredibly proud. But the reason I wanted to lead in with that is because I do think it's been an incredible moment around early education and care, and whether it's a big event that, one of the very few big events previewing the State of the State and the budget, or who was delivering the Pledge of Allegiance, that early childhood education is like fully in the house in this administration. And I couldn't be prouder to have the opportunity to serve in this administration and to represent some of their commitments to you today. So I also want to just say that we are not here by accident. We are here because of the work you all have done to create a set of alignment, a set of communications, honing in on the messages that are getting out there about the critical role early childhood education plays in our economy, in the workforce, talking about our workforce itself and the needs they have, and the importance of C3 and it being a game changer. We are here to share the good news coming out of the budget and to be on this journey because of the alignment and the work you all have done, communicating with each other, communicating with community members, with the administration, with your legislators, and all of that leads to what is really an historic budget for the Department of Early Education and Care, and a historic set of initiatives that really move us forward in some key areas. So I want to do two things. I want to share the sort of 4 components of the governor's Gateway to Pre-K initiative, and then I want to talk a little bit about the budget and how that supports it. And again, I want to say this budget does not get us all the way where we want to go, but I will say that it represents the vision we want for our system. It represents greater access for families at higher incomes to childcare financial assistance who are so struggling to pay for and find early education and care. It represents and recognizes the critical role early childhood education plays and the importance of partnerships among our early education and care community partners, family childcare center-based programs, and our public schools in delivering high quality early childhood education. And it represents what we all have been talking about in terms of continuing to press those very important multiple levers, increasing the purchasing power of our families so that they can go to work, return to work, and also making sure that we're supporting the financial health and stability of our early education and care programs. So the first big piece of her Gateway to Pre-K initiative and reflected in the budget is the continuation of the Commonwealth Cares for Children program at $475 million going into this year, fully funded with state dollars, a mix of state dollars. So I should say, if you look at the budget, it can be a little bit confusing. So we are funding C3 out of multiple sources, but it is funded at 475, continuing into FY25. So we look forward to working with the legislature and all of you to continue support for this essential program that has really been a game changer.
It would be great to see some celebration emojis happening right now, because we know that this has been such a critical piece of the work that people are doing every day. And as you know, Commissioner, there's just been a lot of like fear, anxiety, hope that this continues. So this is a huge step to have 475. I think the other piece is we know that in the bigger context of the budget, there were cuts. There were other pieces of the state budget. So to see this commitment to early education and care, I think means even more in that context.
Yeah, I mean, I should say our budget is 1.5 billion, 1.57 billion, and that is a 3.4% increase over last year's historic investments, including the continuation of Commonwealth Cares for Children, while the overall budget only grew by 2.9%, which means the priority, and you saw that again in our Malden event, in the State of the State, and in this budget document, which completely lays out and follows through on the governor's commitments around C3. And this administration recognizes the role that program is playing. And we are in a very different position than a lot of other states where those federal funds have sunsetted and programs are really struggling. So I'm grateful again for the leadership and vision of this administration around the Commonwealth Cares for Children program and all of you. The second part of the governor's Gateway to Pre-K initiative to create greater access and affordability is a policy shift up to 85% of state median income for child care financial assistance, as well as an investment in the budget of $75 million, which we estimate will allow us to serve another 4,000 families. In our child care financial assistance programs, we are up at 58,000, which is the high before. We're almost up to 58,000, which was our goal for this fiscal year, which gets us up to the pre-COVID high. And we believe this amount of funding will allow us to serve a greater number of families, up to hopefully 62,000 by the end of the fiscal 25. So we hope these investments continue. And also just want to recognize, I know we're not serving everyone below 50%, but we are serving many families who are between 50 and 85%, and many other families either through some of our priority initiatives. And we believe that we want to build a new system that recognizes the importance of serving families at least up to that federally allowable maximum of 85%. And this is an important moment for us to do that as we're changing systems, as we're investing new dollars in the system. I hear from programs all over the place that you have families who get $2 or $3 or just a few dollars over that limit. So we remain committed to our lowest income families and making sure we're prioritizing those needs, while also being a system that recognizes the needs and the high cost of early education and care for our moderate income families, including your staff. So we're very excited that the early education and care priority has now moved from pilot to sort of a policy for the agency, and we look forward to really prioritizing making sure that staff are able to access our child care financial assistance. I've gotten to meet with a lot of staff and program directors around the Commonwealth for whom that program has really been essential to recruiting and retaining staff, and we know how important it is, given the wages, that we also are supporting compensation in as many other ways as we can. You may also have seen that the budget includes $20 million for new rate increases. So as I said, the rate package that we passed, historic as it was, especially over the last 2 years, gets us down the road towards a better cost-informed rate structure. And this $20 million will allow us to continue down that reform path and to continue to recognize the critical work through increased rates and hopefully getting funding into the hands of your staffs. So I'm really excited about those. And then the third component of the governor's Gateway to Pre-K is expansion and a real commitment to universally accessible early childhood education. And the governor is proposing to do this, and we're thrilled through the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, which has its roots with the PEG grant, or the Preschool Expansion Grant. And there's some really key and important components that this administration feels are really strong. We feel strongly about as we support expanding access to early childhood education. And first and foremost is that this is a partnership program between our public schools and our community-based programs. We believe early childhood education is an experience, not a setting. And we picked the Malden, the Mystic Valley Y very intentionally because they have a very strong CPPI partnership in their program where they're delivering early childhood education through our fabulous mixed delivery system and doing some of the really important key components that we're going to be supporting through this expansion: common curriculum, common professional development, coaches, increased accessibility and affordability by subsidizing the cost for families to be able to access early childhood education. So the budget includes $38.7 million in the CPPI program, which will allow us to bring in new communities with a focus and priority on gateway cities, as well as expand within the existing communities that are out there. So there is not a single curriculum, but it is a partnership initiative where the public schools and the community partners come together on a set of agreements about how expanded access can work, how common curriculum expectations can work. And what you see in the programs that are thriving partnerships is that kids, regardless of the setting where they're spending time, family childcare, center-based programs, or in the public schools, that there's a common set of expectations about what kids should be able to know and do before they go to kindergarten. And we're seeing real positive results for that. We're also seeing programs getting additional professional development and partnering across the mixed system to be able to make sure the teachers are getting the skills and the professional development they need, and the kids are getting the preparation they need for entering school, ready to succeed. So the fourth, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other investments in the budget, but the fourth component of the governor's pre-K initiative, Gateway to Pre-K initiative, is an executive order, which brings together all the elements of state government together: economic development, labor and workforce, health and human services, along with education and EEC, to be able to take a whole government approach to childcare. I have spent actually multiple events, and Lauren Cook got us all started yesterday. She hosted an event where Secretary Tutwiler, Secretary Howe for Economic Development, Secretary Jones from Labor and Workforce Development all had an opportunity to visit the Ellis program and talk a little bit about how that executive order is going to be implemented, and the commitment across the Secretariat to recognize childcare as a key element of infrastructure for the Commonwealth and competitiveness for our economy. And Secretary Jones and Secretary Howe and Secretary Tutwiler couldn't be more committed to doing that. And that is how we should be talking about childcare. So across all the sectors, we want to make it more accessible and affordable. We want to bring greater equity to all of our programs. We want to take a whole government approach that invests across our Commonwealth and thinks about all the resources of the Commonwealth that can be brought to support and invest in this industry. So really key approaches that hit on both the families who need it the most and thinking about competitiveness of the economy. And those are the things we know early childhood education has been essential for. So real broad recognition of that. And I look forward to that task force getting rolling. And Mark, if I missed something on the executive order, I'm happy for you to chime in. So
Amy, as we get to the next part, so everybody, thank you so much for the questions. I just want to do a few reminders of where we are right now in the process. So the governor, when you think about the budget, that has to get done by this July. July 1st is our new fiscal year 25. So what we are talking about today is the governor's proposal. So people, they have a lot of questions about, like, well, what does this language mean? And what about if you're not a gateway city and you need a CPPI funding? These are all the governor's ideas. So right now, this is a proposal that then the House of Representatives weighs into, and then the Senate. So a lot of the specific questions, we can think about like what the intent is of the governor's proposal, but none of this is becoming law right now. There's a whole process that we have to go through. And so I think one of the questions that's come up a few times is around C3 grants. And we know that in the past, there was some half-year funding and then ultimately full-year funding. The governor's proposal is $475 million for a full year of funding. So that would be from July to next June. So that's the proposal. But right now, nothing is set, which I know is a very upsetting answer because people I know are trying to build that into your budget and understand. It is a very important, good sign that the governor has put the amount of money that we need in that line item. So it will help. We as advocates need to continue to advocate for it, to thank the governor for putting in, and then kind of contacting our House and Senate members. So I think we'll go through the questions. We'll get to as many as we can. We will send the whole chat to the commissioner and her team and the secretary so they can see kind of who was here and what the questions were and what the vibe is. But just know that we will continue to talk about this and think about the analysis and answer questions. But we can't make any decisions about what came out yesterday. We can make a decision to be send thank yous, but it's not impacting your program right now. So back to you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Amy. I think that's really important, right? We are one step in the beginning of the process, and the governor's proposed budget reflects her values and commitment around early childhood education. And the spirit of that is what I was talking about in terms of accessibility and
That's great.
affordability and equity and making sure we're pressing the multiple levers. And I just want to say, I think the proposal also really reflects many of the values from the Common Start Coalition and also from the Economic Review Commission report. Like, this is the system we have envisioned building, and the governor in her proposal has put in many of those building blocks that can move that parts of the system forward. But we are not into implementation because we have to wait and see what the legislature decides, where their priorities are and how they want to move forward. So many of the questions about how would we do this or how would we do that will get resolved once we know where the final budget lands, and what the final legislation looks like, or the budget language looks like, that will direct the agency in different ways. I will say the executive order is not part of the budget process. So an executive order is actions that the governor can take on behalf of her administration and her cabinet, asking them to do certain things. So the executive order has been signed, it is in place. There will be a task force that brings together all of those cross-secretariat commitments to thinking about and working on childcare and early education across whole of state government. So that will absolutely happen as we all continue to monitor and watch what happens through the budget process, and implementation comes after those things have been resolved. So maybe I'll stop there, Amy. Those are the highlights, I would say, of the new investments. And, there's additional ongoing investments for continuing programs within the agency. Certainly not everything is growing at EEC, although, again, under the current revenue structure, I think we're incredibly fortunate that the governor prioritized EEC and childcare as much as she did through this budget proposal. I guess the only last thing I just want to mention is that a $30 million for literacy launch, which is expanding at Department of Elementary and Secondary Education literacy efforts, but very much in partnership with EEC and with our community of stakeholders. So hopefully, if that gets supported through the process, we'll also have additional resources supporting our early literacy efforts in early education and care.
Amy, I'm going to remove our spotlights so we can see the people, because people have come on camera today, which is great to see. So I think there are, so tomorrow, Mass Taxpayers Foundation is doing a budget briefing on February 6th on early ed and care. So that will be a good place to get some of these kind of further details. And then I think, Amy, do you just want to talk about the next board meeting? The other exciting news that we can announce today, and as we have 221 people on this morning, the secretary was scheduled to be on. He is with the governor at an event. They switched the time of the speaking program, so he was unable to join us. But many members of the secretary's team are here. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that. We have also booked Commissioner Kershaw for the Thursday after the next board meetings through June. So the board meeting will happen on a Wednesday, and then the commission will join us here on Thursday to talk about highlights from the board meeting. But Amy, you want to talk a little bit about the next board meeting and kind of what opportunities are there? Because I think the other piece that's come up is around the mixed delivery for.
Absolutely. So at the next board meeting, obviously, we'll be talking some about the budget like we did today. So we'll have additional opportunities for that, and always invite public comment to come to the board. We're actually going to be in Salem. The big highlight will be a focus on the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. I know we've had a lot of questions about what is that program and how does it work, and what does it mean for us to be in support of our mixed delivery system? What does it mean to have a common set of curriculum expectations? We're really committed to special education services through the CPPI program. So please tune into the board meeting, because we're going to spend lots of time talking about what the core pieces of the CPPI program are. And we're also going to have a fantastic opportunity to hear from the Salem partnership. So we'll hear from both the district as well as the community partners that are participating in that, to talk a little bit about what it looks like on the ground, at least in Salem. So I think we'll have a much better opportunity for people to kind of have insight into into what that program is and how, if the governor's proposal is supported, it would help us move the system along in the direction that I think we all share in terms of our goals and visions for young children and school readiness. And then we'll also talk, we presented some C3 data at the last board meeting. We'll expect to present a little bit of additional C3 information at the next board meeting. So again, it'll be in Salem, and any of you are welcome to tune in on our YouTube channel or join us there in person.
I think maybe the other piece that we talked a little bit about yesterday is, like, when you think about the complement of programs that we have in Massachusetts to support young children and families, from family childcare to centers, for-profit to nonprofit, this mixed delivery system, you know, as we think about the financial assistance part and how that all plays in, you want to talk a little bit about, like, that 50 to 80%, the many programs serving children that might be eligible for, you know, now would be eligible for subsidies for 85%. And I think what C3 has changed is the relationship between so many programs and the state. So maybe give us like 30 seconds on that, just so we can all be thinking together about how do we explain these complicated parts of our systems, and what are you thinking about them?
Yeah, I mean, I almost want to open it up to others to be able to share their perspectives on that. So I'll say a couple things, and then if other people want to chime in and think about, you know, I think we're fortunate that the governor's proposal is reflective of the complications of our system and the multiple levers. There is no silver bullet that we're going to get to the transformative, universally accessible early childhood education, childcare, and out of school time. But by pressing the multiple levers, by increasing eligibility for families at higher levels, by continuing to support operational funding support that we know is going into salary increases, into quality initiatives, in many cases without passing on the cost to families. We also know that C3, you know, we have almost 90% of programs across, maybe 92% of programs participating. And so our relationship to the broader early education and care system and our knowledge of what's happening in that system, thank you for filling out all the C3 data requests that we have that come your way. We have a much broader understanding of who's working in our field, what the impact of funding is, what some of the challenges are, where the growth is happening as a result of the C3 program. So that has been a really important shift in terms of the agency's ability to report on what the system looks like and what's happening in the system, and share that information with all of you, as well as with our legislative partners.
Thank you for
And
that.
I don't know if there's other folks who would like to jump in. We're at time. It happens so fast.
I know. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, we can always, you know, hang on for a few minutes. And I think, you know, as we think about, this is not the only time we'll be talking about this. And I think we'll knowing that we'll have the commissioner on after every board meeting, we'll have time there. Having people come to share testimony at the board meeting would be important. And I just want to, I'm going to put in the chat too, this idea of a message that we sent out earlier around about you belong, about where we as advocates, as practitioners, as people who see children and families every day belong in this process that can seem so far away when we think about the state budget process and how complicated it is, but that we can all learn how to read budget language and line items, how we all can think about how we advocate and use what we are seeing every day so we can help people in government make good decisions and inform them. And I think that's when another key highlight of this, that the governor, the secretary, the commissioner, they have been out to see programs. They have been across the Commonwealth. They have listened, you know, and so I think it's up to us to keep this line of communication going. When Lauren Cook had the meeting yesterday, she said, this is really about looking under the hood. We know there are incredible things going on. We also know that challenges still exist. So how do we kind of keep this conversation going? Amy, I think we can set up a group map, which is one of our online virtual tools that we use, to maybe get some questions from you that we can help get you information and data, because we have found that to be really important. If people putting it down in writing and having the opportunity and knowing that it will benefit kind of where you're sitting and thinking about the decisions that you have to make. And just, I think we would express gratitude for that. You know, you're running a department. You have so many different pieces of the work that you have to be constantly think about. I told you privately yesterday, but I think, you know, as people in the field trust you, and you have your credibility of really thinking about how to first handle and make decisions about all these issues, and then make sure that people understand what the implications are and how government can get better to serve children and families. So just want to thank you for that. And then, always happy to have you, members of your team who are here. Any last words to share? We will share the recording and a follow-up email with a cajillion links so that you can look at them. And keep. Okay, so I just want to clarify this about Commonwealth C3 grants. Right now, we have funding through June 30th in Massachusetts from this year's budget. The governor is proposing another full year of funding, but we won't really know about that until the House and the Senate weigh in. So right now, nothing has changed in your program budgets, except that the intent of keeping it going for another year is there from the governor.
So I guess, yes. So thank you for that clarification. And again, this is just the first really big formal step in the budget process. Right. There are many, many more to come. So I just want to end with two quick things. One is thank you, Amy, for your kind words. And I just wanted to share those back out to the EEC team. Many of them are represented here, but it is the amazing work of that team and our staff. Working hard and thinking through the hard questions and issues and making sure we're communicating out and getting your feedback. And I couldn't be more fortunate to work with a group of talented professionals and public servants as we have at EEC. So I know many of you are on, so thank you, EEC team, for all your work. And the second thing I just want to say is stay together. We are here because of the work you all have done to come together to, even when a rate increase is more beneficial in one part of the state than the other, you were all there together to say this is the right direction for the agency to go in. That I can't really even express. So I want to thank you for your leadership, for your partnership with each other, and for your commitment to the overall system direction that we're going in. So thank you, Amy, for leading this movement and for letting us be part of it.
I also have to say that I love the detailed questions in the chat. So we will continue to track this budget process. Again, we can all learn how this works. We can know when to weigh in. So I put a link into the mass.gov's budget process, so you'll see the timeline and then how things work. Today, on January 25th, we are going to celebrate and acknowledge and thank that and I think Amy's message about staying together is really important. So we will continue, part of the 9:30 call beauty is we have a half an hour every day to answer questions and go through this. So we hope that we see 200 people when we want to go through the budget process as well. But let's now thank the commissioner, thank the team, and thank the team from the Secretariat's office. And we'll plan to get Secretary Tutwiler back on. We'll make sure we have the events. We also know Adam Jones from Mass Budget and Policy Center will be on this call next week to continue this analysis of the budget. We will share the recording and look forward to seeing everybody next week. It's Thursday, right? Yes, on the 9:30 call. We'll be back here on Monday morning. Have a great day and take a deep breath, and we will see you on Monday.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.